Why are you?
I'm sorry?
I mean, why are you here? There must be a reason for you to be here.
Yes. I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
You're gonna end up fighting every elected official in this country.
Sure you don't really mean that, Lois?
I don't believe this.
Lois? I never lie.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where this week we are continuing our exploration of Superman, Richard Donner's classic Christopher Reeve's Superman. I am Steve Morris. I am a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host and voiceover artist down here in San Diego, California. Excited to be continuing our string of Superman content that's been going on multiple channels, but especially here as we dive back into Superman the movie.
But we can't actually discuss Superman without one of my favorite Geek Buddies, but I never rank the Geek Buddies. Michael Vogel, welcome back to the Cine-Files.
Hello. When you say, I feel like I want to open a door, even though it's a podcast, be like, hi, everybody, it's me. I'm back.
Well, and of course, we couldn't have you back without the incredible support from our patrons on patreon.com/the Cine-Files, as well as Apple Podcasts. That's what keeps the microphones running. That's what keeps this podcast coming out. That's what keeps me able to buy the occasional 4K Blu-ray. So thank you to all of you for all of that support.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate it madly. And another way you can support us, let's say you can't donate every month, but if you hear a product that we talk about from one of our clients who sponsor us here on the Cine-Files, it would be great if you all tried out their products, and you get a massive discount using our code, and you can let them know that this is something you're into. And by trying out their products, you're letting them know that this is a place they can keep supporting. So that's another way that you can support us and get something out of the deal for yourself. So thank you all so much.
And I think we should just jump right back in where we left off. We had just made it to the Fortress of Solitude. Young Clark had just discovered all sorts of things about his past and his strange journey with Jor-El. And then, just at the final moment, you get your very first glimpse of Superman in the distance. He flies towards us, disappears, and is gone. And I think the choice to then go into essentially Clark Kent's POV as he arrives at the Daily Planet, but not show him for a while, is brilliant.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision to go that route because you're laying the groundwork of the Daily Planet. And it's kind of smart, I think, because you're essentially laying you're presenting the Daily Planet without Clark. So the Daily Planet works and it doesn't need Clark to function. And you're letting us meet these people and what this newsroom would be like and the harried nature of it all before Clark comes in with his bumbling, awkward nature, which I think is great.
I kind of think that when we talk about Donner's Superman and we talk about how it's the best Superman and it's the bar that all Superman movies are compared to, I actually don't think people are talking about the first part of this movie. And I also think people aren't talking about the third act of this movie. I think from this chunk until about the big montage before we get into Lex Luthor's land scheme, this chunk of the movie is what makes this movie the best Superman movie. Everything that happens from this point forward up until we get to I got a nuclear bomb, I'm going to make land, is where the magic is, I think.
But I just in thinking about what you said, Michael, is I actually do find this slow to get here. But I think all the Smallville stuff is just so lyrical and lovely. And I think Krypton establishes so much that I don't know if I can. I love the section we're going into. And it's amazing, but I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
It's personal taste, and it's when you saw it. Like, I've watched this movie a ton of times. I'm a super nerd. I love the Krypton stuff. I love the Smallville stuff. It's all great. Lyrical is a perfect word to describe it. We'll get to the end stuff, and we'll all debate about that. But while I think that's all great, I think this is the meat of the movie. This is what makes this movie. Everything else is lyrical, lovely, a great take on Krypton. This is where the movie becomes magical.
I don't 100% agree with Mike because I love the beginning and all of that because, as you said, Michael, it's when you saw it. And seeing it as a kid, to me, seeing the things that I'd read in comic books being laid out in live action format in a time when we didn't have a lot of superhero stuff, for me, it was an incredible experience. And I always think it's quaint, and I love the opening of it on. And for me, I know Steve's been saying it's slow. It's a perfect pace for me for what I remember it being. And I like that we take our time introducing everything. But I think you're completely correct that we're going into the magic of Superman starting from this moment forward into the big middle part of the movie is when we really fall in love with the movie. Yeah.
And I think that another way to put it would be, although Marlon Brando is iconic as Jor-El, and as we were saying, there's so many things about the aesthetic of Krypton, the aesthetic of the Fortress of Solitude that are iconic. There's a lot of other versions of Krypton that people love. We've seen lots of takes of Krypton. Sure. And when it comes to Smallville, Glenn Ford is a great, Jonathan Kent, that whole moment is fine, but we have 10 seasons of Smallville that there's a lot of people out there that's their iconic Smallville. We have Superman and Lois, which spends a ton of time in Smallville. There's a bunch of versions of, you can argue what your favorite version of Smallville is, what your favorite version of Krypton is. Most people have a hard time arguing anything other than Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. This is where this movie becomes definitive, I think.
I actually think that's a great point. And I realize I have a question for you, Michael, which I didn't ask you before. Which did you see first? Because I know you came into Superman a little later. Which did you see first, 89 Batman or 78 Superman?
I mean, as a kid, I saw 78 Superman. You know, I didn't appreciate it or really gravitate towards it or hold it up as something that was iconically a part of my geekdom. But growing up as a kid, I watched Superman and more Superman 2, really. I think I watched that a lot more often. But I would say that 89's Batman was more definitive for me in defining my comic book aesthetic.
Yeah, it's really interesting as I'm thinking about it. I hadn't thought about it because we talk about with Star Wars that there is if you grew up with the original series, or did you grow up with the prequels, or did you grow up with, The Mandalorian, and that's where you kind of lock in, and then that shapes how you see the thing. I hadn't thought about that in terms of Superman, but actually it's true, because if you are already past Tim Burton's Batman, well, then now comic book movies are a thing. Right. In 78, when I saw it as a 10-year-old, this is it, So so that really shapes how you see the thing. We go into the Daily Planet, and the pace is so entirely different from anything we've experienced. And I love that we go in through the lens of Jimmy Olsen's camera, through that POV. And of course, that is where we get our first glimpse of the incredible Margot Kidder in this movie.
Yeah, Margot Kidder. I mean, let's talk about it. Canadian-American actress. She got noticed in films like Sisters from De Palma and Black Christmas, the great horror film there from back in the 1970s, and The Great Waldo Pepper, one of the forgotten Robert Redford movies. An interesting note about her, she posed nude for Playboy in 1976 and then wrote an accompanying article detailing how Playboy had made her feel inadequate as a young woman growing up. So this was kind of embracing her power. And of course, Margot became a very strong advocate and activist for a very long time in her causes. But 2 years after this, she gets Lois Lane, follows it up with Amityville Horror. And of course, she reprised the role 3 times, 3 sequels rather, as Lois Lane. But in 1990, sadly, she was left partially paralyzed from a car accident. And then had a manic episode, a very famous manic episode for those of us who are alive. Remember this in 1996. And it was around her bipolar disorder, which she spoke about and talked about that she had been suffering from such a young age. Hollywood rallied around her after that, and she started booking more work. But sadly, in 2018, she ended up taking her own life from alcohol and drug overdose. And when you watch her in this, you're just so enamored with her and her energy and her portrayal. There's such an innocence and a toughness and a joy and a wonder, which you don't always see with Lois Lane's. And I think she nailed so many different components of Lois Lane. And so this is a great introduction to her, just like busily doing her things,
Yeah, I think, I often say Superman is my favorite superhero, but Lois Lane is actually my favorite comic book character. And I think that Lois Lane is actually one of the hardest roles to get right. We all argue about Henry Cavill, David Cornsweet, Christopher Reeve, Tyler Hoechlin. Like, there's so many versions of Superman, Tom Welling. There's Margot Kidder, and then there's everybody else. And I personally don't think that I think Rachel Brosnahan is the one that's gotten the closest. I mean, I think Dana Delaney in the animated series, I think Elizabeth Tulloch on Superman and Lois are 2 of the other standouts. I don't know that any other Lois Lane comes close. It's a very, very hard role to get right. And I think that it's because what Margot Kidder does here is as iconic in its own way as what Christopher Reeve is doing with the Clark Kent and the Superman, and getting that balance of what she's bringing to this role, this hard-edged smoker, fast-talking, but somehow vulnerable. Like, it's just a whole thing that she brought to this that is basically what we all look at and go, this is the bar for Lois Lane.
And it's topical too, Steve, because this predates what we're about to get into in our society, which is the 1980s woman, right? 9 to 5, Modern Woman, the song from Sheena Easton, I think is what it's called, Modern Girl, something like that. You see that there is this a coming of women. Of course, Mary Tyler Moore had kind of started that earlier in this episode. So you saw that this was something that was building more and more. So here is a modern woman, a modern Lois Lane, who later will say, like, yeah, what's the alternative? Being like my sister, 3 kids, 2 houses, a mortgage, and cats, like all this. So to her, she's a career woman, and unapologetically so, which is something that is very new when you look at the time when this film came out.
So I honestly think that Margot Kidder's Lois Lane is as defining as all of the design for the Fortress of Solitude and Krypton was. You know what I mean? Like, because I grew up with Lois Lane, and Lois Lane was always a tough reporter. Yeah. That was always, you know, and it's funny because the tone and the style of the Daily Planet is very much back in screwball comedy frame. You know, we did His Go Friday a few years ago for the Cine-Files, and so the idea of the quote unquote tough as nails girl reporter is a trope that goes back a long time. But what Margot Kidder does with this, with the manic energy and the sense of humor and the just always a little bit out of control isn't the right word, but she's going to Lois Lane. She is going to be who she's going to be in that moment. She doesn't have a filter. All of that stuff comes from Margot Kidder. And it's so funny. I'm just thinking about the story you told, John, about her life. And I go, it's just so sad when you see someone who clearly does a star turn in a film, but then doesn't really become a star, you know? Right. Because this is a star turn as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And by the way, just so you know, Margot Kidder was among basically every woman of this age in Hollywood that came in to audition for this thing, including Ann Archer, Leslie Ann Warren. But then it really became a battle, which I just see as a battle between two titans. It was down to Margot Kidder and Stockard Channing.
Wow.
And you could see it, right?
You can see it. You can see it. I can picture a Stockard Channing Lois Lane, and you can see why it came down to these two, because I do think that a Stockard Channing Lois Lane has some of the same elements. In fact, I would say that Stockard Channing's first lady in West Wing is kind of an older Lois Lane in a lot of ways. So I think that you can see it, but I can also see why Margot Kidder beat her out at the end of the day.
Would you like to hear the reasoning that I heard of what it came down to?
Yes.
Sure.
They were just a little worried that Stockard would overpower Christopher Reeve.
Yes.
And I think that's totally, because you got to hit it just right. Because Lois should be able to overpower Superman on some levels. But on some levels, Superman is not overpowerable, you know? Like, you got to hit it right.
Well, I will tell you a funny story. So for years, as a Superman fan, even though I'm gay, I always would say growing up, I got to find my Lois Lane. I got to find my Lois Lane. Like, I'm looking out there, I'm looking for my Lois Lane. And one day a friend of mine was like, you think you got to find your Lois Lane? And I was like, yeah, like I feel like Superman is my guy. It's like, I'm the Clark Kent Superman. I got to find my Lois Lane. They go, describe Lois Lane for me. And I was like, well, you know, I mean, she's tough and she's confident and she really speaks her mind and she's kind of stubborn and she always thinks that she's right and she's always got to be the loudest person in the room. And then I kind of stopped and I was like, oh, I'm Lois Lane. I got to find my Clark Kent. Oh, okay. Now I got it. Now I understand. But I think to the Stockard Channing Margot Kidder thing, Margot Kidder has that balance of she's all those things. She is all the things that Stockard Channing brought to it, but also as soon as Superman grabs her, that vulnerability shines through. And with Stockard Channing, as many things as I love about her, that's where I think she probably did fall down.
I love the way, you know, we see her for the first time through the lens of the camera and she smiles. And then her first line, and I think this running joke goes so far to establish her character, because the first thing we hear Lois Lane say is,
how many T's in bloodletting?
2. What are you writing, Miss Lane?
Ode to Spring. How do you spell massacre?
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So not only is it great, and the words that she's using are hilarious, that joke is so good that it has become a defining characteristic of Lois Lane ever since then. Lois Lane in the comics constantly cannot spell. Like, that has been a thing. I think it's even in Lois and Clark. Like, it was so good that everybody just decided to keep using it forevermore.
And of course, in this moment, we also meet Jimmy Olsen, who's played by Mark McClure.
Yeah, Mark McClure, an actor from San Mateo, California. He got Jimmy Olsen pretty early in his career. He'd only been in the OG Freaky Friday in 1976. And then 2 years later, he books 3 notable roles in Hal Ashby's Vietnam War classic with Jane Fonda and John Voight called Coming Home, Robert Zemeckis' film about the Beatles fans in New York City, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and then Jimmy Olsen in Superman. And he kept working steadily through the 80s, as Michael might know him as Dave McFly from the Back to the Future movies. But he was also in films like Amazon Women on the Moon, Chances Are, Apollo 13, That Thing You Do. He had a cameo in the Freaky Friday remake in 2003, Coach Carter, Frost Nixon, and I think the only person, the only non-main person to appear in both Joss Whedon's Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League as 2 different roles. So, and a fascinating man who keeps enduring and keeps working. And it's always fun to see him pop up and stuff. So, and he does a great Jimmy Olsen here. You know, as iconic as you say, Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve is, I think Jimmy Olsen is just as iconic in this movie as well. Hey, Mr. Kent, hey, Mrs. Lane, you know, all that is really good from him.
Golly, Miss Lane, how come you get all the great stories?
A good reporter doesn't get great stories, Jimmy.
A good reporter
Makes them great.
Jackie Cooper, man, such a great presence in the movie. He started out as a child actor playing the character of Jackie in the Our Gang movies of the 1920s and 1930s. If you remember those black and white ones, for those of you of a certain age, he's the one that had the crush on Miss Crabtree. He was nominated for Best Actor, actually, at age 9 in 1930 for a film called Skippy. He was the main kid in the original movie The Champ in 1931. Jim Hawkins in 1934's Treasure Island. He kept acting through the 40s, served in the Navy during World War II, then kept acting through the 40s and 50s, and then in the 60s became the VP of Program Development at Columbia Pictures, Screen Gems TV, and helped to package shows like Bewitched, and then kept acting through the 60s and 70s, and eventually landed the Perry White role only after Keenan Wynn. He was the original cast. Keenan Wynn had suffered a heart attack. He retired in the 1980s from acting, but kept directing TV and even directed some episodes of a syndicated show that I forgot even existed. It existed for 100 episodes in the 80s and 90s, and that show is Superboy. So a lot of stuff around Jackie Cooper connected to Superman, and he reprised the role for all 4 of the films.
It's talk about a guy who is Hollywood history.
I know.
You know, that's you just described like so much of Hollywood in his bio.
Yeah.
And again, this whole thing is at that screwball comedy pace. There's all going to be all sorts of things going in at once. We're always being thrown many things. We're certainly not going to go into all of them now. But the one thing we'll definitely get, as Perry says,
there's only one P in rapist. Lois Lane, say hello to Clark Kent.
Told you one P.
And there we see for the first time Christopher Reeve's version of Clark Kent, which I think is a revelation.
Yeah. I'm not going to run this down. You can watch the documentary. He's amazing. It's Christopher Reeve. So yeah, what a performance.
And it is, I mean, again, when we talk about the things that make this movie, you're right. The pacing, I mean, I think it's worth noting that you just, you know, what was the word? This idyllic, this lyrical Smallville, the way you described it, everything up to this point is idyllic, slow-paced, heavy sci-fi, this beautiful Norman Rockwell Americana, and then you are thrown into this like super fast-paced everything, and then things kind of stop when you see Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent. And the comedic performance that he delivers as Clark Kent is as iconic as the charm and superhero vibes he gives Superman. Like the distinction between them and the way that he plays these two characters so differently. Again, like this is not the Max Fleischer cartoon where Clark Kent was just Superman but in a suit. Like, you know, this is such a difference in the way he acts, in the way he is, in everything about him, that it's jarring in the best way possible.
It's so true because, like, I grew up on the Superman TV show, and George Reeves' Clark Kent, he was a tough guy. Like, he was a stud. you know? And so this whole thing, this what Christopher Reeve did and what this movie does is every movie after this has to reckon with a choice. And that choice is Superman pretending to be Clark Kent? Is Clark Kent pretending to be Superman? Is it a mix of the two? How do each of these things manifest themselves? And you see different interpretations go in a different way. And this one to me is Superman is pretending to be Clark Kent. This is a role.
Well,
you know?
Okay. This is a eternal debate and a huge argument amongst comic book nerds. And Quentin Tarantino and Kill Bill would agree with you. Yep. I do not. But what I do think, and I forget, I don't know if it was Mark Waid or there's a comic book writer who sort of laid this out. There really are three. It's not Clark Kent and Superman. It's actually three different things because there is Clark Kent in Smallville. There is Clark Kent in Metropolis, and there is Superman. What Clark Kent does in Metropolis is a bit of an act, but ultimately Superman is Superman because he's Clark Kent. And this gets into, this gets into Zack Snyder's opinion about it and James Gunn's opinion. James Gunn's opinion is it's Clark Kent. Superman is Clark Kent. Like Clark Kent is the thing. I think Clark Kent is who Superman is, but the choice that's made here, you are correct, definitely leans towards Clark Kent is a persona. And that's where this whole debate started because Christopher Reeve is so damn good at it.
Yeah. And so just to follow this casting story a little more, as we said, while the studio is calling up Paul Newman and Robert Redford, and they're also bringing in just basically anybody who has muscles to audition, Christopher Reeve is acting in an off-Broadway play with fellow Juilliard student William Hurt and with Jeff Daniels in some play, and he gets the call to fly to London to audition for Superman. And he goes and tells the two guys he's acting with, and William Hurt is all over him. You cannot do this. You cannot take this role. This is selling out. You will ruin your life. You'll ruin your career. You're turning yourself into a joke. Like, just wouldn't lay off him at all. And Christopher Reeve said, yeah, I'm still going to go do this audition, and heads off to do the audition.
That doesn't sound like super serious William Hurt at all. That doesn't sound no. Marlee Matlin was so complimentary of William Hurt and his support of her career, right?
It's so, but here we see his Clark Kent. We see everything. You know, there's some introductions. We're talking about different stories. Jimmy Olsen's there. It's super chaotic in the midst of the whole thing. Perry White's trying to open a bottle of Perrier or something, and says, "Hey, Clark, can you open it?" And just watching, because this is the first time we're seeing this Clark Kent, just watching him struggle with trying to open this bottle, and then Lois Lane, midst of all conversation, takes it out of his hand, bangs it on the table, hands it back, it opens up and sprays everywhere.
Yeah, the vibe between the two, I mean, part of what makes the Margot Kidder part work is that, you know, when you have those comic duos, you need those extremes. It's Laurel and Hardy, it's Bert and Ernie, it's Woody and Buzz. You can go down the list. But Lois and Clark in this movie, Clark being this sort of wimpy, sort of stumbling over his words, and Lois just constantly barreling over him in every way, shape, and form. But we as the audience know who he really is. It's like a double joke. It's like watching the dynamic between them is great, but watching the dynamic between them knowing that if she only knew, it makes it even funnier.
Gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shake it up like that.
Oh, well, of course not, Lois. I mean, why would anyone want to make a total stranger look like a fool?
And it goes by so fast that it's just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's so funny the things, because which comic book movies have to do today. It's, you know what it's like? It's like referencing the phrase clobbering time in the new Fantastic Four movie. So you have to use it. And so one of the things they have to do here is don't call me chief. Is you got to set up, Perry White has got to say, that's for old school. That's from old comic books and stuff like that. So you have all this quick back and forth of,
Olsen, why am I paying you $40 a week when I should have you arrested for loitering? Go get Mr.
Kent.
A towel. Move, kid, move. Right, Chief. And make mine black and no sugar. Right, Chief. And don't call me Sugar.
but it's all pretty fun. And then we hear that Perry White is putting Clark on the city beat.
That's my beat.
Lois,
Clark Kent may seem like just a mild-mannered reporter, but listen, not only does he know how to treat his editor-in-chief with the proper respect, not only does he have a snappy, punchy prose style, but he is, in my 40 years in this business, the fastest typist I've ever seen.
It's a great joke. It's a really good joke.
Yeah.
And then Clark says, and I love everything about Christopher Reeve's physicality because he's a big guy, but he plays the big sort of awkward and the big guy trying to be smaller and being soft and not wanting to bother anybody. And he goes,
Excuse me, Mr. White. I was wondering if perhaps you could arrange for half my salary to be sent to this address on a weekly basis.
Your bookie, right?
A what?
Don't tell me. He sends a check every week to his sweet gray-haired old mother.
Actually, she's silver-haired.
It's so cute. And again, this is not as extreme maybe as Superman saving a squirrel in Superman, but this guy who's sort of as mild-mannered can be, who's playing into this role to keep his identity secret and sends half of his paycheck to his mom. Like he's just the sweetest. Like you just want to take him and just like give him a big hug. Like he's just the sweetest guy in the world. And even though all of this stuff that we're talking about is played for laughs and this entire scene is very, very funny, it also just establishes him as a good guy. Like he's just a good guy through and through. And this sort of defines what we think of as Clark Kent, what a lot of people think of as Clark Kent / Superman for years and years and years, which has caused plenty of debates with the other versions of Superman that we have seen.
I love the moment.
Any more at home like you?
Not really, no.
And it's so funny at the beginning of superhero movies with this film, it's like, I don't think you could do those kinds of jokes today because there's just so many superheroes everywhere. But at this moment, I think it just is really lovely. It's later on, and we will see what we see throughout this whole movie. Clark Kent always a step behind Lois, always trying to catch up.
How'd you like your first day on the job, huh?
Oh, well, frankly, the hours were sort of longer than I expected, but on the whole, meeting you and Jimmy Olsen and Mr. White, gosh, on the whole, I'd say it's been swell.
Swell?
Yeah.
You know, Clark, there are very few people left in the world who feel comfortable saying that word.
What word?
Swell.
Really? Oh, so it was kind of natural.
Let me tell you why I think this is a critical moment in the movie.
Okay.
Is that this is 1978. And that it's like we're coming in the 70s after so much cynicism, so much. It's like today. And if someone comes out today, as we said with the new Superman movie, this is punk rock, in this way. It's like he doesn't realize, or maybe Superman realizes, but Clark doesn't realize that he is out of, it's like Clark missed the 70s. In fact, Clark did miss the 70s. I just realized. He spent 12 years off with Dad flying through space. He totally missed the hippie revolution. He missed the early 70s. He missed Vietnam. He missed all of it.
Yeah.
Well, and it is. I mean, it's the swell. It's Superman in the 2025 Superman saying golly. Like he is, this is the guy. I also think what's funny as we're going through this whole bit, and it, like I said, this is my favorite part of the movie, but we can't go 5 minutes in this part of the movie without you having to stop and go, now let's talk about this line specifically. Let's talk about this line specifically. It's so packed, and every scene is packed with really, really funny stuff, really, really great character development, and just really iconically Superman things that have defined these characters ever since then. And it's kind of amazing to watch now and go, man, they nailed this.
And the next defining moment is actually, it's not defining at all, but we run into Rex Reed for no particular reason.
For those who don't know, very famous columnist and movie reviewer.
But it's just sort of weird. And then we see a sketchy looking guy go into an alley, and Clark is still saying nice things about the Daily Planet. And then the guy from the alley gestures for them to come with him. And then we see the gun.
Come on. Clark, I think we better get out of here.
I think we better do what he says, Lois.
And Clark is standing in front of Lois. She's kind of behind him, and Clark is trying to talk the guy with the gun out of this whole thing.
Now, I realize, of course, that times are tough for some these days, but this isn't the answer. You can't solve society's problems with a gun.
The guy's like, you're right. I'm going to turn over a new leaf.
Good for you, sir. That's the spirit. See, he doesn't really want to hurt anybody.
Uh-huh.
Right after I rip off this lady's purse.
And again, these are the defining moments. Lois, Clark tells her, yeah, you should give your purse. And she holds it out and she's going to do the drop. She drops it. Yeah. He, looks down at the purse. She kicks him in the face. And then, and this is one of the great moments for me in all Superman films, because the guy's falling backwards in slow motion. And as he falls, he aims that gun, he fires, and you see Clark reach out, grab the bullet, and then he collapses.
Yeah.
And I can remember, because I'm 10 years old in the theater when I saw this. And this was just like, this is it. This is the thing that I'd been in love with as a little kid, The bad guy runs away, and Lois looks down at Clark, who is passed out. He wakes him up.
Clark! Are you all right, Clark? What happened?
Golly, I guess I must have fainted.
Fainted?
And it's so disrespectful. It's so, shows him to be weak and shows him to be all these things. And she's kind of shaking her head and walks away. And then Clark looks down at the bullet in his hand, and that smile comes over his face as we hear the Superman theme. It's great.
Yeah. That's the gift of his performance. The kind of smirking knowingness that he has in certain moments that never comes off as condescending or offensive. It's just kind of like joy, almost a happiness, and I like that energy that he brings.
Well, because there's an interesting balance between the screwball comedy of all of it. I passed out. He's kind of like, oh, let's give him the purse, Lois. I'm just this mild-mannered guy, and this guy makes me nervous. And the moments of even him saying to the guy, hey, this isn't the way. You should do something different. That's what he would say if he was in the red and blue super suit too. There's elements of, and even throughout the Daily Planet scene, there's moments where he says something that it's like, well, that's Superman would say that line too, but then he retreats into this persona that makes it really funny. So it's very funny and comedic, but there's just this thread of goodness that goes through both characters that ties, we always talk, we're talking about it here, we're talking about the distinction and the differences between Clark and Superman. But I think what makes it the same is even despite that there's this physicality that's different, and Clark is really played for comedy in a lot of ways, there's this through line of both Clark and Superman are just good guys. And I think it's the thing that ties them together that makes it really iconic.
It just occurred to me, I never had this thought before, but that there are a lot of characters, fewer now than there were, but who have secret identities. Lots of superheroes have secret identities. Right. Not all superheroes have secret identities that are different personalities. Like Peter Parker there's not two different characters that he's playing, but with Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne too, those are like characters, and what they are in the reality is a little different.
Well, really, Lois? Supposing that man had shot you. Is it worth risking your life over $10, 2 credit cards, a hairbrush, and a lipstick?
How did you know that?
Well, what?
You just described the exact contents of my purse.
It's all really fun stuff.
But this is also a window. And as much as you revere the moment here for Superman, Steve, I think it's also a moment that gives you a window into Lois. Lois has a fearlessness. Totally. Lois kicks the thing. Lois is the one that, how can I say this? That accelerates the situation rather than, escalates the situation rather than de-escalates the situation. And it's only because Clark can catch the bullet that she lives, because the guy shot her, and so she literally was going to die over a bag. And so you have that moment. So Lois has her beliefs. Lois has her feeling of strength and standing up for herself, and she's even willing to risk her life over a bag to do it. So it's a little window into both of these people, and I like it for that as well.
Lois definitely leaps before she looks. Literally in Superman 2, actually. All right, we're like an hour plus into the movie, and we're finally going to meet some bad guys, because we got Ned Beatty crossing the street. They're cops. They're obviously watching him. The music is this great theme that we have that's really fun and silly.
So what's happening, partner?
Look what we got. Let's take him.
Wait a minute. Maybe you lead us to the big man himself.
Lex Luthor?
You got it, Amos.
These cops in the car, they're obviously on a stakeout, and these are a couple of interesting guys.
Yeah, that first cop, the one who doesn't die is Stephen Cahan, and he is the cousin of Richard Donner. And if you guys remember, he played the captain in the Lethal Weapon movies. He's the captain who's also screaming at Briggs and Murtaugh and all of that. He appeared in 14 Richard Donner movies, and this was his film debut. So the guy got around thanks to his cousin there. Is that a Nepo cousin?
I'm going to do
a Nepo cousin. What would you call it?
I mean, I think a cousin is just a cousin. You don't have to call him a Nepo cousin. So the cops are chasing him. We go through it. I'm not going to describe everything that happens in the sequence, but it's a fun sort of chase through Grand Central Station, down onto the trains. One of the cops is following Otis. The other cop is waiting for backup. Otis goes into the train tracks. He's perfectly comfortable, balancing on the rail and all that stuff. Guy's following him, sees him go into this little alcove, sees a train go by, and then what we see is a switch get flipped in that alcove. The back wall becomes a door, backs up, and he walks through the tunnel, and then the cop looks up and sees that he's gone. And so now the cop thinks he's figured it out. So he goes over to that same alcove. He pushes on the back wall. The train is coming. The train is getting closer. We see a key in a control. A switch gets switched. A lever gets slid. And that pushes this dude forward right in front of the train that kills him, which scared the crap out of me as a kid. By the way, the technology that's just rear projection. So there's just a big movie screen with a train coming that he falls in front of. That's how they did this.
You mean they didn't kill him?
They did not kill him.
Well, that's a relief. I think this is all super fun. I think the March of the Villains theme that John Williams makes is amazing. I think Otis is I think Ned Beatty is really hilarious. I don't think any of this is iconically Superman.
No, I agree.
This is a very funny, kind of comic booky introducing of the villains. We're getting into Gene Hackman, and we're going to talk about that. And although this I enjoy, when people who did not grow up with Superman come back to Donner's Superman and are watching it, this is when we start to get this you think is iconic super? Like this is the best Superman movie ever? It's super fun. And for the 70s, to your point, Steve, like one of the first comic book movies kind of leaning into the comic book humor. And I think Ned Beatty just delivers on the goods, playing like the dumb henchman. But yeah, none of this is like, you don't watch any of this and go, and this is how Lex Luthor and his henchmen acted for the next 50 years. You're like, oh, okay, this is fun.
You seem to have a strong reaction, John.
Well, I mean, what can we say? I don't want to get into a massive debate, but the way people come after Ned Beatty and Gene Hackman, I will defend their performances because I love this, and it is Superman to me because it wasn't like Superman was written by like Frank Miller from the beginning with these amazingly complex, nuanced interpretations, for God's sakes. It was written for kids, and people forget that. And so the bumbling and the kind of characters, they were all part of Superman growing up in the comics and in the serials you would see in the newspaper. So to me, in the 1970s, this fit. And I think Ned Beatty does feel like a Superman villain, just not one of these incredibly complex, really layered, incredible. It's just a fun movie that doesn't want to present to you something too deep as a villain. And so they're just going to have fun with it. And I think Ned Beatty and Gene Hackman do a really good job with Luthor and Otis Berg.
I'm not knocking their performances, nor am I knocking the fact that they're both very entertaining, nor am I saying that they're not comic booky.
It's not iconically Superman, which I think is incorrect.
Well,
what I mean is
when you look at Christopher Reeve's performance,
yes,
Christopher Reeve's performance as Clark Kent and Superman not only defined every live action performance that followed it, it defined the animated performances. It defined how he was portrayed in the comic books. When you look at what Margot Kidder does, it defined Lois Lane, again, in the comics and animation and live action, the Fortress of Solitude, all of these things. Like they were so iconic that you said, this is how these characters have to be forevermore. Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor is a great and fun performance, but it bears very little resemblance to either the mad scientist Lex Luthor, the CEO Lex Luthor. It wasn't something that defined the way that we look at, like, it's great. I think Gene Hackman's hilarious. I'm just saying it didn't transform the character forevermore in the way that so many other pieces of this movie absolutely did.
Yeah, but I would argue that both Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder are defining it for live action based on what has been done in the comics. So it wasn't like they came up with this out of the blue from scratch. They were inspired by stuff that was already in the comics, and they added a live action interpretation. I hear you on the Luthor stuff. I hear you on that. I think they made the Luthor fit for what was big in the 1970s, and that Luthor worked for me watching it. Even now, even rewatching it now, I love his Luthor. And I think it may be because I see shades of myself in Luthor, and I love that. Like I love Hackman's
You love a good land scheme.
I love a good landscape, but the bravado of it all, there's just this kind of confident, relaxed, condescending bravado to it all that I kind of love. Not that I say that myself, but like I'm seeing like I would love his kind of relaxed approach to everything. Like and at times his kind of looking at the people, like the situations that he's in, and he's trying to aspire for more. And thinks his kind of misguided way of doing it is the way to do it. But I like the swagger he has as Luthor. And you may say it isn't the iconic Luthor gets defined, but you've got to have swagger as Luthor. And I think Hackman gave that swagger, and we can see that swagger in Michael Rosenbaum's Luthor. We can see that swagger even in Nicholas Holt's Luthor. And we didn't get a Luthor in Man of Steel, but if we did, I think we would have seen.
Well, we got one in BVS.
Right, in BVS. Yeah, sorry. But yes, but you'd see the swagger is what I'm saying. But yeah, that didn't have enough swagger, but other Luthors would have had the swagger. And so I think Hackman is the one who brings this kind of swaggering confidence to what he's doing that I think worked so well and other Luthors have spoken out about how much they were inspired by Hackman's performance. So you may be right that it's not accepted as the iconic performance, but I would say that it has influenced other Luthors going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think what's hard about this discussion, it's just sort of, it goes into all of the things that are sort of, John has heard me talk about this a lot, but bugging me more and more about the way we talk about these things, because it's so easy for what people think is the correct choice or what something should be or what is iconic or what is influential to bleed into what is good. And they're not, and that's the thing, is that I agree in terms of there are not, if you looked at all the comics after this, people, while they did pivot to the Clark Kent from this movie, they pivoted to the Lois Lane. They took influences from how Krypton was designed. All those things filtered into comics and later versions. This particular version of Lex Luthor didn't get used as much. But that has nothing to do with me of whether or not they made this choice. Did they succeed in doing the choice that they made? They nailed it. Would this be the choice that I would make? Absolutely not. I would never do a Lex Luthor like this. But the quality is, to me, these are great actors nailing the thing that they're trying to do, Yeah.
I mean, Spacey was doing that in Superman Returns, right? The land deal, the whole.
Yeah, well, because Bryan Singer literally went to Richard Donner and said, "I want to basically do a sequel to your Superman that's also beat for beat your Superman." So that's why that happened. I think of it a little bit differently than you do, Steve, only because I do think that at a certain point, like we talk a lot about how our superheroes are our modern day mythology. Now, just like Greek mythology, those stories often contradict each other. Zeus is a great hero in one, he's raping a girl in another one. Like there's we have lots of different versions of the Greek gods as characters. But when I think it's not that people hold something so specifically that you're not allowed to do something different, but when you do something different that doesn't resonate, I think geeks are well within their bounds to say that. Like we're watching Fantastic Four come out in theaters right now, and the general consensus is, wow, finally they got it right. Now, that doesn't mean that those other choices aren't valid. They just didn't feel like that character. Whereas also Christopher Nolan does Dark Knight and does a Joker that bears almost zero resemblance to the origin story that we kind of all have accepted as the Joker story. And everybody says it's one of the greatest performances in superhero comics because it worked. So I think when you do something different that works, everybody's very on board with it. I mean, Smallville is a perfect example. Like up until that point, Lex Luthor didn't grow up in Smallville. Him and Clark weren't best friends, but boy, did that work for people to the point that everyone sort of still wants that to be the case, even in versions where it's not. So I think when different happens and it really works, people actually are really accepting of it. But when different happens and it doesn't land, And what happens with 78 Superman, you're both 100% right. And then we'll continue to talk about it. The performances in this movie are great. And for the tone and the feel of this movie, everything is wonderful. It's delightful. Gene Hackman is absolutely the right Lex Luthor for this movie. When fans today go back and watch it, and they didn't grow up in the 70s, and they did grow up in the era of all these other superhero movies, it doesn't feel as it's not quite what they were expecting.
That's totally fair.
I would like to split a very minor hair in your argument, Michael. But when you started, you first said that when they do something and it didn't, and people didn't like it, you go, okay, that wasn't the right choice. And then in the second half of what you were saying, you said that worked or that didn't work. Worked and didn't work is exactly where I would prefer to be talking rather than right or wrong. Because what ends up happening is that you have this, in my opinion, ridiculous Snyderverse, Gunnverse debate. And it's like, you're wrong. And it's like a whole bunch of people like that movie. A whole bunch of people like this movie. It's not a question of right or wrong. It's like, well, that didn't work for me or it did work for me, you know? And the thing is, someone can make a choice, you know, like we could have hated Heath Ledger, but it wouldn't mean that then we would go, well, that didn't work. But I wouldn't say that was wrong. I just dislike, because when the debate comes on this right, wrong thing, it gets really, really out of control really quickly, you know?
Philosophically, I agree with you. And I can think of 10 different examples off the top of my head where I would go, no, that's wrong. But philosophically, I agree.
Yeah. But I wouldn't say, if someone said, hey, I want to do a Batman in space story where Batman meets the, you know, 1,000 generations descendant of his, and that those two people fall in love and they have a child, and I'd be like, this doesn't sound like a Batman story to me. I mean, I tried to make something off the top of my head. It ended up being pretty ridiculous, but I'd go like, but I wouldn't say don't do it. I would say, show me, let me see, you know.
Yeah,
it's not what I would do. Anyway, we need to move on.
Yes.
We've been here for a while because we now get to really have our bad guy trio here. And of course, we have Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor. They initially wanted Dustin Hoffman for this role.
Oh, God. You're wrong. There I go. You're wrong.
I don't know, man. Yeah. And of course, what the big thing was, the Gene Hackman did not want to shave his head. He also had a mustache. He didn't want to shave his mustache. And Richard Donner goes into, who also has a mustache, and says, listen, okay, you're not going to shave your head, fine, but you got to shave your mustache. We got to get rid of the mustache. And Gene Hackman goes, I'll tell you what, you shave your mustache, I'll shave my mustache. And Donner goes, sure, great, you got a deal. Hackman goes off to the makeup trailer. The makeup people, they shave his mustache. He comes back out. Donner still has a mustache. And he goes, Dick, we made a deal. You got to shave the mustache. And Donner goes, oh, yeah, right. And he reaches up and pulls off the mustache because it had just been glued on the whole time.
That's a great story.
Isn't it, though? And we hear Miss Tesmacher say,
sick.
Played by the great Valerie Perrine, a Texas-born actress. She was a former showgirl who, by the way, also posed nude for Playboy, but in 1972, she started to get noticed in films like Slaughterhouse-5. She was nominated for Best Actress for her role as Honey Bruce, the wife of Lenny Bruce, Dustin Hoffman's character, in the 1974 biopic of Lenny Bruce called Lenny. She was also nominated for a Saturn Award for her Miss Tesmacher. She went on to be in films like Electric Horseman, The Village People's Can't Stop the Music, which Steve and I should do one day as a watch-along, Cannonball Run, The Border, What Women Want, and she famously played Richard Belzer's wife in the TV show Homicide, which is now on Peacock, and people should totally rediscover it. Here's a little crazy tidbit about her. By the way, she's still around with us. Sadly, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2015 and has struggled with that, but here's a little crazy tidbit. In 1969, she was dating Hollywood hairstylist Jay Sebring. She was supposed to go to a party with him, and she found someone to cover for her at work because she hadn't quite become a big actress. And that person who was supposed to cover for her got sick unexpectedly that day, so she had to go into work. And the party she missed out on was the same party that night the Manson family killed 6 people, including Jay Sebring. So she could have been murdered along with Jay Sebring that night if her coworker had not gotten sick who was supposed to cover her shift. So It's crazy. Yeah, craziness. But a very good actress and someone I always enjoy when she pops up and stuff, you know?
Yeah, but if she had gone to the party, those guys would have gone to the wrong address and met Brad Pitt instead. So it would have worked out.
It would have been fine.
How do you choose to congratulate the greatest criminal mind of our time? Huh? Do you tell me that I'm brilliant? Oh, no. That would be too obvious. I grant you. Charismatic. Fiendishly gifted.
Try twisted.
And now we're into this dynamic. And Gene Hackman, man, he goes full on. He goes fully to be whatever this thing that he is doing is.
Michael, I take it all back. This is me. This is absolutely me. This is why I love the movie. If I was to be a villain, this is exactly how I would be as a villain. And I love it. That might be my bias here towards Gene Hackman.
And the whole thing is, like, once you, again, setting aside the entire discussion we had about wrong choices, whatever, when you're in here and Gene Hackman is going full bore, I mean, I think this is his second most comedic performance in his career after The Birdcage, which is the absolute funniest he's ever been. But he really is hilarious. And the fact that Lex Luthor is like, has a secret villain lair in the subway system with the pool and the thing, and he's got the beach set up. Like, the whole thing is insanely ridiculous and silly. And to your guys' point, tonally, that fits what we've done. Like, going from like the super serious sci-fi of Krypton to the Norman Rockwell idealism of Smallville to the screwball comedy 1970s vibe of Metropolis. For when this movie came out and what they were doing, this is what audiences were expecting. And I think audiences seeing this interplay between these three amazing actors, I think it worked perfectly for the other comedies that were out at that time. And yes, Gene Hackman is acting for not even the back of the theater, but the front of the theater across the street. Like, he is just going for it.
Why do so many people have to die for the crime of the century?
Why? You ask why? Why does the phone always ring when you're in the bathtub? Why is the most brilliantly diabolical leader of our time surrounding himself with total nincompoos?
And of course, right at that moment, Otis walks in.
I'm back, Mr. Luthor. Yes, I was just talking about you.
So Gene Hackman is amazing.
Yes.
Fucking Ned Beatty, man. And this is like 3 years after Network. This is like 5 years after fucking Deliverance.
Yeah.
And now he's doing, I mean, Ned Beatty, I think, is one of the great underrated actors of all time. Like, that guy could do anything.
The one thing that people talk about with British actors is their ability to play status up and down the line, right? Not a lot of American actors have that necessarily as a calling card. But British actors really have it as a foundational piece. They can play the lead. They can play the 10th person in the cast. They can play the ensemble. They can play the goofy person. They can play the villain. Ned Beatty has that. Ned Beatty's range is astronomical. And to watch him work, he's a character actor who can play a lead, who can be an ensemble character and never loses his effect. And you never walk away from a performance not impressed with his work. And he's so good here playing this character. This is the guy who delivered that dialogue from Network. Like that monologue from Network is one of the most astute and politically devastating monologues ever delivered, which still resonates today, for God's sakes, as we see it happening again, these attacks on the press and the free media. You see this happen with the things he said. And then, like you said, Steve, 2-3 years later, he's doing this bumbling idiot Otis to Gene Hackman's Luthor. It's incredible.
It's crazy. And there are a whole bunch of bits, and we're not going to go into all of them, but that we do start talking about some kind of real estate swindle. We hear that his dad, convinced him to believe in real estate. Again, all the play between Otis, Miss Tesmacher, and Luthor are all very funny here.
How many girls do you know who have a Park Avenue address like this one?
Park Avenue address? 200 feet below?
Do you realize what people are shelling out up there for a few miserable rooms off a common elevator? What more could anyone ask?
I mean, he is very full of himself. That I will give John. Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor is very, very full of himself, which definitely, okay, I'll give you that one.
We're back at the Daily Planet.
Lois, I was wondering if maybe you'd like to have a little dinner with me.
Oh, gosh, Clark, I'm sorry, I'm booked.
Oh.
I don't think that Lois ever wanted Clark on her bingo card in this sense.
Yeah, Air Force One's landing at the airport, and this kid's going to be there to make sure that you know.
Good night.
Who answers a few questions he'd rather duck?
My goodness, don't you ever let up?
She says, and this is the line that you brought up before, John.
Before? I mean, I've seen how the other half lives. My sister, for instance. 3 kids, 2 cats, and 1 mortgage.
Yeah. I would go bananas in a week.
Here's what Richard Donner figured out about Margot Kidder. Is he figured out that she was at her best when she was just a little off balance, because when she was off balance, she would get more amped up, and then she would be a little bit out of control, and she would do things that were unpredictable. And so what he did was he would play jokes with her or play jokes on her right before the take. So he would have practical jokes. He'd have people come out singing songs. He'd do anything he could to get her laughing and not thinking about the scene. And then he'd go roll camera action. And she loved it. She was like, felt like that was a director who got her and understood how to get her best work out of her.
And I think you're absolutely right. I didn't know that. And that makes a ton of sense, because you are, as the audience, left almost as breathless as Clark is, as you are trying to keep up with Margot Kidder's performance. Like, she's just rapid fire, going nonstop, saying all these things, just rattling through her lines. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. And so even though we all know that Clark is playing a character and he's doing whatever, you sort of feel like you are in Clark's position when you listen to her talk.
And there's more comedy of him trying to get in the up elevator and the down elevator. And it's all funny. And Christopher Reeve's, I wish we had gotten more Christopher Reeve comedy. Yes. Like Noises Off, he's great.
Noises Off is so good.
And then we cut to the roof where she's going to go get on a helicopter to go to see Air Force One. By the way, they were originally going to shoot this at the rooftop of the Pan Am building in New York. But literally 4 days before they were supposed to shoot, there was an actual helicopter accident on the roof of the Pan Am building in New York. Several people were killed, and Pan Am said, "We don't think we want you to shoot a helicopter accident on our rooftop right now. Thanks."
Yeah.
Daily Planet Copter 1, this is ground. Planet 1, go ahead.
So the chopper's coming in. We see Lois run out in a beautiful yellow dress. So obviously she changed in the ladies' room. And we notice something going on with the cables and the brackets, and the cable catches on the runner, and we go into the most difficult sequence in the entire movie. This set piece was shot, it took over a year, shot on 2 continents, to put all the pieces together to see what we're about to see. The cable catches, the helicopter starts going down. I think it still looks genuinely scary, and Margot Kidder's great in there.
And it's great because, as much as there's the 70s, the screwball comedies of this era, there's the disaster movies of this era as well. Yeah, and I think what happens, what they just do seamlessly is you go from the rapid fire banter and patter of like a screwball comedy between the Daily Planet, between Luthor and Otis and Tesmacher, and you get into the scene. And the second this scene happens, it's not, there's no comedy here. There's no silliness. Right. Like, this is straight up, this is a disaster. Like, this is a scary, scary moment, and it 100% works.
In particular, the moment, the helicopter's starting to hang off the edge of the building, and the moment that Lois falls forward towards the door that opens up and she looks down at the ground below her, it's really scary. Part of what they're shooting is on the streets of New York, for all the reaction shots, and when Clark comes out and looks up and everybody else looking up, and the DP is lighting the street scene, and he just doesn't feel he has enough light. And he's pulling all the max out of all of his generators. He's tapped out all of his electricity, and he looks over at the gaffer and is like, "Well, we could just tie into the city, which sometimes you have permission to do, and sometimes you do not. In this case, they did not have permission to tie in the city, but they went down in whatever manhole they needed to do, and they plugged in, and they put on some extra lights, and all the lights in the whole city went out."
Wow.
Because this is July 13th, 1977, the night of the giant blackout in New York. And
this is why?
It is 100% not why.
Okay.
It is totally a coincidence. Is that it? But at the moment that happened, the DP was like, "Shit, what did we do? What did we do?" No, it had to do with it's outside of the city, and I forget what it all was, but there was a cascade of things that caused everything to happen, but knocked the power out for 2 days, or maybe more than 2 days, I think, in New York. But this is a big deal. Anyway, the news crews are now looking up. Everyone's looking up this helicopter. Lois is struggling to get through the helicopter. The build is really huge. Clark walks out knowing nothing, looks down, finds Lois's hat, looks up, immediately moves, and then a joke, which I don't even know if this joke plays today, but in 1978, this was a huge laugh, which is that Clark walks by a phone booth, looks at it, and then shakes his head.
It does not. I've had people ask me about, like, they're like, I don't get it. And I'm like, oh, well, there's phone booths, and then these is like a different kind of phone. Like, it doesn't play at all today, but it was great for its time.
Because in the old Superman TV show, George Reeves changed in the phone booth every episode.
Yep.
Like that was just a normal thing.
Yeah.
And we see him go through the revolving door, which spins real fast, and he comes out, and there we finally get to see Superman. And the first person that sees Superman in his costume is a cliche that we would not do today.
Hey, Jim! Whoa!
Excuse me.
That's a bad outfit!
But I bet it got cheers in the movie theater in 1978.
That guy is awesome.
It still does.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
That's a great
I love him.
Yeah. I was listening to the Double Toasted Guys, which is one of my favorite podcasts. One's older black gentleman, younger black gentleman. They talk about the film. They went back and revisited recently, and they talked about it. He goes, I miss the good old days when you could have pimps in a movie and it was no big deal. Because you have the thing where he's just yelling at him about his costume. And I love Superman going, just a minute. He takes
well, and it's like, this is the 70s, so the blaxploitation movies are big. So you've had the Mac, you've had a whole bunch of movies that were celebrating pimp culture. I mean, we're only a few years away from Dr. Detroit, John. I mean, this is,
Dan Aykroyd, amazing. Love that.
And so Superman flies straight up. And by the way, they're different techniques for different flying. This one is, there's just a really, really big crane, and he is on a wire, and they just lift him up real fast. That's how we did this one.
Damn.
And of course, at this moment, Lois has fallen out of the door. She's hanging by the seatbelt. Her fingers are slipping. She's losing her grip, and then she falls. Everyone gasps, but everyone sees this blue and red figure flying up. Superman catches her and says,
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me. Who's got you?
Literally the greatest line in the movie. I think it's the greatest line in the whole movie. There's a lot of other contenders, but her delivery of "You've got me, who's got you" gets me every time. And I think, look, we talk. One of the things you guys have been saying a lot about this movie, which I didn't think about, but I enjoy, is that it came out in a time that was very cynical.
Yeah.
And this moment where something that should be a disaster happens, and this guy that is dressed ridiculously flies in, swoops in, and saves the day. It really, really hits. And it hits in a way that, although I really do love James Gunn's Superman, because he chose to make his DC universe very Silver Age and different, Superman's, you still have the kindness being punk rock, and he's just a good guy. But I think the reality of this moment, how it really feels like all the other disaster movies of its era, and Superman enters it, I think this moment plays better than most other Superman movies having that introduction moment. Like, it really lands perfectly. Still today, I think this moment lands perfectly.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this whole montage is the platonic ideal of there are no superpowered people and one shows up and how we react to it. It's all done so well. By the way, initially, this was the whole thing. He catches Lois, flies up, puts her back on the roof. Richard Donner, as they're in the midst of it, goes, what if the helicopter falls next? And that's how we get to where we get to. Because the helicopter starts falling. And I love just that he just catches it easily, flies up, turns to Lois and says,
Well, I certainly hope this little incident hasn't put you off flying, miss. Statistically speaking, of course, it's still the safest way to travel.
I love it.
Well, and it's like, that is something, again, we talked about, like, there's certain lines that, as different as Clark and Superman are, there's certain lines that you're like, well, either one of them could say that. Like, that's a line that if Clark Kent said that, you'd be like, yeah, that's still like there's that weird overlap in the Venn diagram of their dialogue.
You want to know what my note at this moment was, Michael? It's both Superman and Clark are nerds.
Yeah.
Because I had the same reaction. It's like, yeah, they're both dorky nerds. And by the way, every time we see them together, we're going to hear that Superman love theme.
Wait!
That play. I mean, this is the great thing about having John Williams, is hearing all of these themes at exactly the moment you need them.
Who are you?
A friend.
And he flies away, arching backwards as he flies away, which apparently this is one of the most difficult flying postures for Christopher Reeve to do physically, because he's having to create all that when wires are yanking him in all these different directions and make it look effortless and easy. And this one was hard.
I like the wave he does in that moment. It's a nice little like kind of cherry on top of that cake.
And then there's this great high angle as she's waving off at him, and then she faints. And now we're going to get the big Superman montage. I want to talk, so we've talked about several different techniques for flying. Here's how they did this one. There's this shot where he's kind of flying towards camera, and then he kind of turns and rotates and goes fully upside down. So here's how they do it. He is basically in a box, and in a box has a built-in projector around it and has a camera, and both the projector and the camera are on a gimbal, and both of them can spin in either direction, so that the camera can spin and rotate, and then the backgrounds can spin and rotate, and then he's lying on a platform, and then he has to spin. He has to know what the backgrounds are doing and what the camera is doing, so he can counter spin or lean back or direct his arms in whichever way he does to make it look like he's making all these things happen when actually they're all happening to him. I don't even quite 100% picture how this all worked, but it sounds really, really hard to pull off.
That's wild.
Yeah. We see a suction cup guy going up a glass building. And as he's coming up, we see those feet on the glass. And this is classic. This is like Adam West technique, which is the guy is actually on the floor and Christopher Reeve is just standing on that. And you can kind of tell if you look at the cape and stuff. The guy falls. Christopher Reeve flies past the guy who's in the office. That guy is sitting on the ceiling. He is upside down to make this technique work. That's great. And we're going to get, he turns those guys in. We have a car chase that ends up on a boat, and he grabs those guys. And then we have the last one of this part, which is a little cat caught in a tree, and Superman flies down, gets the scared cat, delivers it to the girl.
Gee, thanks, mister.
Oh. Bye, Frisky. Long now.
The whole sequence is amazing and super fun, and it just gives you the wonder of, to your point, a world that had never had a superhero that now has one, and everyone's reaction. The villains are almost like, I don't know what to do here. And the cops are like, all right, well, yeah, let's go get the whiskey. But I do think it is funny that, like, I've seen a lot of people when the constant Superman debates. So someone's like, well, what is it you want? You want a guy who's just going to get a cat out of a tree? And I'm like, yeah. I do. That's why this movie works so well. And that it's the last moment. It doesn't go cat out of a tree, burglar with suction cups, giant boat, police station, whatever. You have all of these amazing feats. And then at the end of it, he gets a cat out of a tree for a little girl. Because he's just, that's kind of how dorky Superman is. I like that. I love that it's the final moment.
What's interesting is it isn't actually the final moment, but I agree with you. This feels like the last one, but it isn't the last one. But we have to get to the last moment of this because she runs up to the house and goes,
Mommy, Frisky was stuck in the tree. This man swooped out of the sky and gave him to me.
And we do not see it, but we hear,
haven't I told you to stop telling lies?
And the clear, unmistakable sound of a slap in the face.
Well, now everything I said sounds bad because we ended it with abuse. But yeah, sure, it's great.
That's how it was back then. That's how it was back then.
First of all, that was not that unusual. Yes. And second of all, I think it's great. And that mom is going to feel real bad when she sees the papers tomorrow. Right. She's definitely going to feel bad. But this is why I say it's not actually the last one, because the last one is Air Force One.
Right.
And we go right to that.
Oh, you're right. Shit.
No, but I think this is some magical, weird filmmaking thing that Richard Donner did, because it feels like the end. Like that is, I actually think that in the way the montage is structured, that slap is the last part of it. And then it feels like we went to a different thing.
Right.
To do the Air Force One part. It feels separate to me.
This is the more difficult one. So it has more time set up, and it is the president's plane, so there's more importance to him trying to save this thing, so they extend it out a little bit more. So yeah, that makes sense. The montage,
you're right. Yeah, it's funny that you say it that way, because, like, yes, in my mind, and I've seen this movie a bajillion times, and I'm always like, oh yeah, the cat's the end of the montage. But I think that's where we talked a lot about the journeys to and from Krypton, and the and going off with Jor-El, and how time passes in those. Like, those montages are there to go, it took a long time to get to Krypton. And then that other montage is there to be like, yeah, he grows up and turns into Christopher Reeve. So by the end of this very quick montage, we're like, time has passed. Because you have the whole sequence with Lois, which is great.
Yeah.
The whole who's got me, you've got me, who's got you. Then you have this montage that I, in my mind, still feel like it ends with the cat.
It does.
And then you have this whole Air Force One sequence in a very short amount of time. It feels like Superman. It feels like we just read 4 issues of the Superman comic. Even though it's just all happens just right on top of the other, boom, 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 boom. You kind of get to the end of that and you're like, yeah, man, this guy's everywhere. He did everything.
And speaking of Air Force One, we're up there. It gets hit by lightning. We have a shot of the totally wrecked shell of an engine. They're calling in Mayday. Air Force One is going down. The president's on board. And then the first thing that happens is we hear the music. And then right after we hear the music, we see that hand come up through the frame of the engine. And there is Superman, who has put his body inside the jet engine, essentially, to become an engine, and looks over at the pilot or co-pilot, I guess, and waves. It's a great shot. I mean, it's just a perfect Superman shot.
And the line, the reaction line is perfect.
What the hell's going on out there?
Fly. Don't look, just fly.
We see all the news reports are now happening on all the TVs. We have that. It's the thing you don't really see anymore is the news playing on the TV in the window because nobody puts TV news on TVs. It never occurred to me that is a thing of the past. And the reason it's a thing of the past is that the only way you could have anything playing on TV was to play whatever was on TV. There was no tapes or anything like that or DVDs. Anyway, we go back into Lex's swimming pool that he has in his beautiful Park Avenue apartments here. I like the logic of this joke, by the way.
Do you think it's the genuine article?
If he is, he's not from this world.
Why?
Because if any human being were going to perpetrate such a fantastic hoax, it would have been me.
We also see in this moment that Otis has a wig in his hands and puts it on like a Julius Caesar bust because it's the most important defining characteristic of Lex Luthor is that he's bald. And so this is a little clue to us, the comic book fan, like, no, he is bald. We're not showing it to you, but he's bald.
It occurred to me as I was watching it this time, I wonder if they're all wearing green as a little bit of an allusion to Kryptonite. Because they're all wearing green. His shorts are green, his cap has a green liner. Miss Tesmacher's in a full green bathing suit. And when Otis comes in to give him his robe, the robe has a green outline on the robe. So I just wonder. And the water itself is almost green-like, even though it's kind of slightly blue. It's got the aqua blue, but that is an element of green. So it just occurred to me this time, and it's never occurred to me before. So
my initial reaction was that I was like, I don't think that makes sense. And then as you talked about it, I was 100% certain it's on purpose. I'm not 100% certain. I am strongly confident that it's on purpose because if you think about it, like this is the conversation you would have with a production designer as you're designing space. You're talking about color, and you go like, well, what is the most dramatic thing that's going to happen in this space? Is that there's going to be a green glowing rock put on Superman.
Yeah.
And so then, because this is what you do, I'm sure, Michael, you've probably done this too. Definitely you've done it in animation.
Oh, for sure.
As soon as you work backwards. So you go, okay, this is the most dramatic thing. So how am I going to do the color scheme of this space to make that really dramatic? And playing with how you're going to play with green leading up to that makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we did Spectacular Spider-Man, we decided really early on that green was the villain color. Like that was the danger bad guy color. And so there was certain sequences where we would just like bathe, like from a lighting standpoint, you would go to your design and just like bathe everything in green light because this is a villain moment. So yeah, that's a huge part in animation. And so, yeah, I think John's probably right. I think like, you forget that like, it's not like someone's just going through a costume closet and pulling out whatever works. Like you're designing the entire space and you're designing everything. So I think you are dead on. I never noticed it, but now I'm never going to not notice it.
Yeah, very cool. After a joke of, Otis bringing the robe into the pool, we go back to the Daily Planet where the, I think the Daily Planet is a place where people just yell out stuff. And people may or may not be listening and may or may not be talking to each other all the time. But Perry White at this moment is on fire about these Superman stories. And he goes, who doesn't have the name Superman yet, by the way.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here. I want the name of this flying whatchamacallit to go with the Daily Planet like bacon and eggs. Franks and beans, death and taxes, politics and corruption.
So Perry White wants a story. And in the midst of this scene, Lois Lane notices a note. And she looks at it, opens it up, The note says, tonight at 8, your place, hopefully, a friend. And while this is going on, Perry White's continuing to ask questions like,
Tony, who is he? Mike, what's his name? What's he got hidden under that cape of his? Batteries? Why did he show up last night? Dick, where does he come from? Does he have a girlfriend?
At which point we cut to Lois Lane, who smiles.
So let me ask you all a question. Did Clark Kent develop a crush on Lois Lane and then go and get a job at the Daily Planet? You know, the thing we do with all our reviews are we go like, what's the backstory? How did this come about? And there really is no backstory to this love story other than we're led to believe that he got the job at the Daily Planet. He was immediately smitten with Lois Lane within seconds and is now like in constant pursuit of Lois, asking her out to dinner. And now he's using his Superman guise as a way to lure her to his place to have some time with her as this alternate ego of himself. So my question is, that's my question is like, did he have the hots for Lois Lane, try to get a job at the Daily Planet, finally got it? Did he become this type, all of this stuff, like all of this just to get close to Lois Lane? And I wonder what you guys think.
It's funny you say this because I never bumped on this until this last time, but I was having the same, like I was going like, this is happening really fast. Like he's into her right at the beginning. And I think it all totally works, but I definitely kind of went, wait. And I mean, it's a bit creepier if he just likes like, I'm into that girl. I'm going to become a reporter, you know?
I do not think he did that. And I kind of think I think we don't bump on it because it's all on screen. Like he meets her. And I think that we as the audience kind of fall in love with Margot Kidder's Lois Lane right away for all the reasons that you've laid out. The how many peas and rapist, like the fast talking, and like he clearly likes her and tries to ask her out to dinner. And she brushes him off so suddenly. You're like, oh man, but like and this is where is Clark Kent an act? Yes. Is he still, it's not all an act. When he asks Lois out, he's not faking it. Like, oh, Lois, would you like to go to dinner sometime? And she brushes him off. But then he saves her, and she is clearly sort of enamored. And he's like, well, I guess I can ask her out this way. And like, you know, I don't think he's trying to pull one over on her. Like, this is who he is. He is a nerdy guy.
I mean, he literally is pretending to be someone that he has two different identities. He's definitely trying to pull something over on her.
Well,
but not in a creep way.
This gets into it. Like if it gets very, this is the core of like what it is. Like, I think he's not trying to pull something over on her because enough of Clark is Superman and enough of Superman is Clark. And look, what I think the reason that we fall in love with the scene that's about to happen is because this is how we all feel. We all go to a bar or we match with someone on Hinge and they kind of brush us off and they go, oh no, it's not quite my thing. And you kind of go, if they could only see the person that I really was, they'd really like me. And I think this works because Lois Lane is brushing off the guy that she thinks she would never want to date. But when she meets the guy on a rooftop, to us, it's the same guy. Like, we know that she's falling in love with the same guy and that if she saw what was really underneath Clark's facade, what she would find is the guy that's on her rooftop.
I think what you said at the beginning of this section, what you said, I think is the key, is that we fell in love with Lois Lane. And so we go along with Clark falling in love with her and don't ask any questions because we've already fallen in love with her.
Yeah.
And because we've also fallen in love with Clark because we've had almost over an hour of time with Clark Kent, much more time than we had Lois Lane. We are in love with him and want him to get this. So like that's the trick of the film. I think when you look at it, listening to you guys talk, is that they make us fall in love with both of these characters, so we don't question the fact that the film wants us to get these two characters together. You know, and so because normally in another film you'd be like, well, wait, all of a sudden he's got this, like the first day he's asking her out, that seems weird, you know. But with the movie, because you're in love with both of these characters, you actually want it to happen, so you kind of step over that. You know,
it just occurred to me, and I'm not going to make this political, or at least I'll try not to. It, but you know, there's always a debate about what is the real America. You know, is it this or is it that? And who represents the real America? And it just occurred to me, like, oh, Clark Kent, Superman, is a small town boy from the country who loves the big city. And the evidence that he loves the big city is that he loves the most big city person, which is Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of going like Superman and Clark Kent managed to bridge this gap of being, he is 100% both. He loves the small town. That is his origin. That is who he is.
Yeah.
And he loves the city and he loves Lois Lane.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, you know? So speaking of this, let's cut to this scene, which is one of the great scenes in the movie and the great scenes in all Superman movies. We cut to Lois looking lovely on her ridiculously gorgeous rooftop apartment. I think this is one of the first times that I ever noticed, understood, why does she have this place? But it is gorgeous. And there's a POV flying shot, and then he comes down and as gracefully as a gazelle lands on the roof.
Good evening, Miss Lane.
Hi.
This is the audition scene. So if you watch, and they have a bunch of casting, you can see Christopher Reeve much, much skinnier, weighing like 180 pounds in a costume that did not conceal his sweaty armpits, because he is sweating a lot doing this scene over and over again. And pretty much what everyone says the moment they saw him in the costume and he says the words, "Good evening, Miss Lane," everybody knew.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have plans this evening?
Oh, this is the whole thing. No.
He's a crafty SOB. He showed up 5 minutes late. Like, he made her wait. He's a crafty little SOB in his own way. So, I think it's an interesting part of it, too. Like, he makes her wait and be a little bit disappointed. Then he shows up.
And she goes to light up a cigarette, and he says,
You really shouldn't smoke, Miss Lane.
Don't tell me. Lung cancer, right?
and she turns away, and then her back starts to glow.
Well, not yet, thank goodness.
I think he violated her HIPAA rights by doing a medical test without permission. I think this was a great way to plant X-ray vision, just the way they did it visually and the way they set it up. And I also think it's interesting too, because 1978, you were too young, Mike, but people were smoking everywhere. Yeah. Everybody smoked, And so the lung cancer, right? That is very much of that time, and I just have to say, man, Christopher Reeve looks incredible as Superman. Astounding, really. And I also think that, and part of it is costume technology has changed, but Christopher Reeve is getting the least assist from the Superman suit of anyone who played this part, after George Reeves.
100%.
This is him, and he was a skinny dude. Would you like to know who helped train Christopher Reeve and put on 40 pounds of muscle?
Was it Arnold Schwarzenegger? Just tell me it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It was not.
God damn it.
The main stunt coordinator is Vic Armstrong, who's Raiders and Star Wars and, also one of the great stunt coordinators. Oh, yeah. And he hooks him up with this former bodybuilder that he had just worked with on a movie that was a really nice guy. And that is Darth Vader himself. David Prowse is the guy who trained Christopher Reeve to be Superman.
Okay, if it wasn't going to be Conan, Darth Vader is the next best thing.
Isn't that nuts? What's nuts to me is they don't know that Star Wars is going to be big, because Star Wars is when they're training together. Star Wars hasn't come out yet.
I find your lack of strength disturbing. I just want to hear that in the gym at one point.
But you'd have to hear it in David Prowse's weird, Cockney accent.
I find your lack of disturbing.
Would you like a glass of wine?
No thanks. I never drink when I fly.
What Christopher Reeve does, and it's like a fucking magic trick, is he's just 100% sincere and truthful. And you just believe everything he says.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with your vital statistics. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Do you have a girlfriend?
No, I don't, but if I did, Miss Lane, you'd be the first to know about it.
I mean, what's great about this is he's being super sincere and sweet, and he's a Boy Scout, and he doesn't drink, and he's worried about her getting lung cancer. Also, these two are so hardcore flirting with each other that it's insane. It's absolutely bonkers the way that they are both doing, just well, are you married or you got this? Well, you'd be the first to know. And you're like, just take your clothes off.
She says,
how old are you?
Over 21.
Oh, I get it. You don't want anyone to know how old. Okay. And how big are you? How tall are you?
That is totally a dick joke. Go ahead, yes.
I don't know that it was. I really, in 1978, I go, and maybe it's because I was 10, and so it certainly went over my head in 1978.
In 2025, it's a dick joke. I think in 1978, it's just commenting on how Buffy is.
Yeah.
You guys are insane. All right, go ahead. Richard Donner has a thing,
a big dick.
He has
and honestly,
he's subtle with some of the stuff he throws into things. So yeah,
honestly, the after a couple more lines, the next line is really makes John's point. I would say.
I assume then that the rest of your bodily functions are normal.
I mean, that does kind of connect some dots of what she's asking about.
Because for all people want to say this is like like kind of it appeals to kids, this movie, there is an adult element to the film. And these moments in the back and forth. And this is the 1970s, which is like the free love period. Not free love, that's the late 60s. But certainly there was still the sexual revolution of the 70s. And so you have that as an element here. And you wanted to appeal to 4-quadrant audiences. And so having these little kind of flirty back and forths that allude to certain things, but in an innocent way, I think that's clearly being done here,
Well, putting it delicately.
And the camera pushes in on her, and she's staring at him, and he leans in, and they're close, and you could feel the tension.
Do you eat?
It's all really fun. Yeah. And then she seems to know certain things about him, and I don't quite know why.
Well then, is it true that you can see through anything?
Yes, I can. Oh, pretty much.
What color underwear am I wearing?
That is a move.
She's putting it out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, big time. She's asking him to look at it.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I embarrassed you, didn't I?
Oh, no.
I did.
No, not at all, Miss Lane. It's just that this platter must be made of lead.
Yes, it is, so?
Oh, you see, I sort of have a problem seeing through lead.
Which, by the way, this is stuff that you just established because we know it about Superman, but this all becomes important later on. Like, this scene is like all flirting, all like sexual tension. It's like super romantic between the two of them, but they're putting these things in there that are actually important things to drop in at this point so that we can do the things we're going to do later.
It's a great way to bury the exposition because, yes, we are telling you it's important for you to know that he has X-ray vision, but his X-ray vision can't see through lead. That is the important piece of information happening here. But what you're thinking about is Lois Lane's underwear.
Yep.
That's what, so you're not, so the exposition just goes in, you don't think about it,
And it also shows that he is innocence about this because, and he's still kind of new at being this hero because he surrenders a vulnerability to a reporter who's going to put it in the story. And so that's something that's going to be used later. Yeah.
It never occurred to me until this moment. And maybe this was obvious to you, but it literally didn't occur to me until right now. What is the big scene in the new Superman movie? It's Lois Lane interviewing Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
what it was absolutely
that didn't occur to you until I was literally sitting here going, this scene and the Superman scene, and James Gunn has made a big deal out of the fact that one of the biggest risks he feels he took was putting a 12-minute talking scene in the beginning of his movie. But like, it's such a great bookend because both are so definitive to those versions of Clark and Lois. And both, but are very different. Like this one is just flirty and the sexual tension. Like you just want them both to just start making out with each other. And the other one has tension in a completely different way because they have started dating and they're realizing it doesn't work out. But they're very different scenes, but they bookend each other so nicely.
Yeah, they're both at critical times in a relationship, right? This is essentially the first date, what we're seeing in the 1978 Superman. And in what we're seeing there in James Gunn's is they're about to become serious, like really serious. And so there's nervousness around it from both sides about it. And so, yeah, it's so perfect in how they mirror each other, but also are distinctly different.
And then she has stepped out from behind that planter and he says, pink. And she looks down and she steps back behind the planter. It's so great because what I think has happened is I think however she found out that he could see through things, maybe it was just a lung cancer moment, but I think she had heard that, but she didn't really believe it. I think it's sort of, oh yeah, what's the color of my underwear? And now she realizes this dude was just looking at her underwear. And if you could see through the dress to the underwear, I'm not going to say any more than that, but
it's just so demure.
Yeah, I am very. I you might say I'm the Shannon McClung of the Cine-Files. No,
But it
I'm
also
really
like
not.
there's an interesting because like the power dynamic between them is a constantly shifting thing.
Yes.
Like when she lays out like, oh yeah, well, what color's my underwear? Like that's a bold thing for a woman to say. And she's very bold and she's brassy. And the second that he's like, it's pink, and she realizes it, like the power dynamic shifts and she steps behind it. And like it's just the back and forth between them is electric.
What's your background? Where do you hail from?
Well, pretty far away. Another galaxy, as a matter of fact. I come from a planet called Krypton.
Huh? Oh, Krypton. With a C-R-I?
No, actually, it's Krypton with a K-R-Y, P-T.
Which I'm also going like, the alphabets don't match. This joke doesn't make any sense. Like, why they didn't spell it with a Y on Krypton, but whatever. It's great.
K-R-Y. Do you like pink?
I like pink very much, Lois.
This is some A1 class flirting going on.
Yep.
Why are you?
I'm sorry?
I mean, why are you here? There must be a reason for you to be here.
Yes, I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
And I'm telling you guys, when I'm watching this movie last week and that line came up, I literally just burst into tears. Like I sobbed. I really did. Because we fucking need this so much right now.
It's punk rock, baby.
I love that moment. Because that's how I feel a lot of the time. It's like, no, actually believing in morality and honesty and doing the right thing it's a real thing. We are humans are capable of doing it. We're not perfect. We fuck shit up all the time. We have all sorts of motivations that are hard to control. But if you believe that people can actually strive to be good, then people can actually strive to be good.
Yeah.
But if you just say they can't, then nobody fucking will. Anyway, sorry. That's why I had such a strong reaction.
Yeah, very clearly, yes.
Lois also has a strong reaction, but very opposite of mine because she laughs at it.
You're going to end up fighting every elected official in this country.
Sure you don't really mean that, Lois.
Does Superman believe that she doesn't really mean it?
This line, Lois saying you're going to fight every elected official, going back to the comparison of the two scenes, Lois saying you're going to fight every elected official in this country is the equivalent of 2025's Lois Lane going, you can't really fly into a foreign country and like it is the moment where Lois Lane is like, that's not the way the world works. And Superman saying, I'm sure you don't believe that, Lois, is his way of saying, yeah, but I kind of want, I think it does. Like this is he knows that she doesn't believe that, but he also knows that deep down she wants to believe it. I think and I think that Lois Lane in 1978 and Lois Lane in 2025 are more cynical and realistic than Clark Kent is. But deep down, they represent that cynical person that we deal with every day. Everybody, no matter how cynical you are, you want to believe that this is the way the world is. Like deep down, you know it's not. You've been taught that it's not. You are faced with people every day that prove out that it's not. But deep down, you go, but maybe if we could just like, how do we break through? That's what this moment is. That's why it works.
Well, and I also think cynicism is important because cynicism also means you don't get duped into and be gullible and falling into the trap over and over and over again because you're like, no, he really means it this time. You're much more aware of what can happen. And so a healthy dose of both, I think, is important, which is why this relationship works. She is, I mean, and I don't mean in a negative way. She is a cynical reporter because she's seen corruption from politicians. She's seen the worser parts of humanity. And she uses that as her judgment of humanity to a degree. Clark has always aspired for more. Clark is the outsider. Clark views humanity as something that he wants to be a part of, as something to admire and respect. And because of the messages from both his father, biological, and his father, adopted, he has that all within him. So when he looks at humanity, he sees that they can be this, they can do this. They need someone, as Jor-El says in Man of Steel, someone to lead them to this place, And so he sees that he must always believe there is good in humanity because that's kind of just his life motto. Whereas Lois, who is a part of humanity, sees it differently because she's experienced some of the worser aspects, and rightfully so, as a reporter covering this stuff, and so plus it's the 1970s, only 6 years removed from Watergate when this movie comes out. So there is that element coming through it.
Well, and I think that's where Lois Lane as a character in the movie is important, because when Superman, whether it's 1978 where he says, I stand for truth, justice, in the American way, or it's 2025 when he says maybe that's the real punk rock, half the movie theater goes, you're a fucking idiot. Like they do. I love that line. It's like one of my favorite lines in the movie. Yeah. I have friends who are like, you've got to be fucking kidding. Please don't ever say that again. Lois
people
Lane,
don't use swell. People are embarrassed using that word swell, Michael. Swell. Don't say that again.
Don't say that again. But Lois Lane is there to let the audience know that there is someone on screen that also is like, you can't be serious. Come on.
Yeah.
And that's what Lois Lane does. Lois Lane allows us to believe that a man can fly because she's always going to be there questioning it just as we are. Mm-hmm.
There are many times, and it's been a lifelong lesson for me to learn that people don't think the way that I think. Because I think 100% he thinks you don't really mean that. I think it is hard for Superman, who sees the world in this, bucolic, raised by the salt of the earth people, deeply moral way, believes in truth, justice, and the American way in a pure sense. And it is hard for him to see that other people don't have, and that good people like Lois Lane might not think the way that he thinks. That's how I feel about that moment.
I think, earlier in the first Daily Planet scene, when she knocks the bottle and hands it back to him, and then apologizes, and he says, well, of course not, Lois. Why would anybody shake something up to make somebody look bad or embarrass them? Whatever that line is.
Yeah.
I think he knows then too. Like, Clark Kent Superman is not a bumpkin Boy Scout. Like, he's smart, he's clever, and he knows in certain moments he's going to call something out in the nicest way possible. To make you question and go, oh, maybe I should. Like, I think he knows what Lois is talking about, particularly if Watergate was just a few years ago in this universe as well. Like, you can't be Clark Kent and go, well, this thing happened, this massive corruption, and go, I think everybody's good. Politicians are great. So he knows that, but he says it kind of with a wink and a smile because he's like, but I'm here to help everybody, and I'm here to sort of be that symbol.
Yeah. Two things. One is, I don't think that Superman is naive about the world. No. Like, that isn't exactly the thing. But I do think he will always tend to believe the best in people at the start. Like, he wants to believe the best in people. But I have an important question now. I didn't think we would go back to the water bottle getting shaken up. But did Lois intentionally shake up a water bottle to make a complete stranger look like a fool?
I think Lois Lane would do that.
I think she just was trying to open the bottle and she's like, you bang bottle. I don't think she was thinking about it in the least. I think it was just Lois Lane doing 27 things at once and one of them was stupid.
I could go either way with it. Like I don't think there's anything that necessarily calls out that she was doing it, but I think her reaction when Clark says what he says, like, I think that he gets who Lois Lane is more than his persona of Clark Kent would lead you to believe.
I will say this. I agree with Steve more. I think she does it absentmindedly because to her, it's not important. For her, it's my story. I need spelling or I need help on this or that. Like, to her, it's just kind of something to do. And I don't think she thought about it at all. And it's only when the thing explodes that, and I think Clark is a little bit calling her out. Now, don't get it twisted. Clark certainly is attracted to her, but Clark is very clear about who he is as well. And so making her way, doing this kind of playing both sides a little bit. And Clark is, he's not an idiot, as you said, Steve. So I think in these moments, him saying that to her is a little bit like just a little jab, but not a big one, just a little jab.
And I would say, just to wrap up, like, my thoughts on the truth, justice, the American way politician stuff. When she says you're going to be fighting every politician in the city, and he says, you can't mean that, Lois. I don't think he means all politicians are good.
Right.
But I think he thinks some are. Like, I think that it's like what you're saying. Like, I don't think that Superman is naive. And there's a difference between believing the best in everybody and believing that everybody is good.
Yeah.
And
that's what I
believing
think, too.
everybody is good is naive and a little bit silly.
Yes.
Believing the best in everybody is a very different thing, and I think Superman does believe that.
I don't believe this.
Lois?
Hmm?
I never lie.
And I don't think she knows how to take that. But because I think, just as if Superman instinctually wants to believe the best in people, Lois instinctually wants to find the worst in people.
Yes.
She's
Also, he is got a secret identity and is lying to Lois about it, just so we're clear.
So he is lying.
Yeah. Constantly, in fact. She asks about how fast he can fly. He says he's never timed himself. And then he says,
Why don't we find out?
And how do you propose we do that?
Take a ride with me?
You mean I could fly?
No, actually, I'd be handling the flying if that's okay.
This is utterly fantastic.
Oh, wait a minute. Where are you going?
don't you wish that on a date you could say, hey, why don't you come fly with me? I mean, that's a strong move on a first date.
It's bold.
I need a sweater. It must be kind of cold.
No, you'd be warm enough.
Totally not. She should have a sweater. It's very cold. Like, this is I disagree with that. There's nothing keeping her warm. She's in a flimsy dress up in the atmosphere. It'd be cold, but whatever.
Clark said that you're just a figment of somebody's imagination. Like Peter Pan.
Lark, who's that, your boyfriend?
And her reaction to that is great.
Love it. I love it.
Oh, Clark. No, he's nothing. He's just a...
Peter Pan, huh?
Uh-huh.
Peter Pan flew with children, Lois. In a fairy tale.
And I wrote down, boy, is he incredibly sexy.
Yeah, man. He is laying it on thick.
I mean, I am a heterosexual man, but I'm like, damn, that's a good looking dude.
I am not. And I feel like that.
Wait,
and then some.
And he takes her into his arms and they are off.
And as much as I love the Superman March as one of the most iconic pieces of music that John Williams has ever written, this is the best piece of music in this movie.
100%. The love theme is amazing. I even like the one with the lyrics.
Now slow down.
Well.
Now you've gone too far.
Is that Melissa Manchester? Don't become from Melissa Manchester.
And I read my mind.
Maybe it's actually Maureen. It's Maureen McGovern.
Oh, Maureen McGovern. Sorry about that. I knew it was two M's.
By the way, so this flying is mostly in front of blue screens with wires. And this is the thing about blue screens. So the way a blue screen works is anything that is blue in that shot goes away. Do you see what might be the problem with having a blue screen
ocean.
for a Superman movie?
The ocean or his costume?
His
costume.
Yeah.
He's wearing blue. So here is their solution. So the way it works, and I don't really understand the science of it, but the way it works is that you have to have a very specific shade of blue. The closer to that blue you are, the more likely it is to go away or partially go away. So what they did, Superman, this is crazy to me, for these shots, he is wearing a very specific shade of turquoise that is several tones off of where his costume is normally, so that it is different enough from the blue screen so that it doesn't disappear. And then in color correction, which is where you shine basically different colored lights at the negative to re-expose it, they color corrected it back to the blue that actually he needs to be.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I just love how far we've come with effects and how we can do anything with digital effects, but there's something so much more charming about the way everybody used to have to figure it out.
So they're out flying, and I will say, I did not express this well when we first discussed this movie many years ago, but I will express it better now. You know the moment in The Princess Bride where, what's his name goes, oh, they're kissing again. Can we skip the kissing parts? This is how I felt about this sequence as a 10-year-old. This was just like, if I'd had a VHS, I would have fast-forwarded it. It was romantic and mushy, and I didn't like it, and I wanted to go fight some bad guys. That's how I felt about this as a kid. That is not how I feel about it now.
As a closeted homosexual child, I felt differently.
Did you?
Yeah. Listen, when it is a very, I mean, it's stereotypical, but when you are a gay kid, and particularly when you're a gay kid who's also a geek. So everything that your friends love, when your friends are like, oh, did you see? And he flew up and he did the thing and he fought the bad guys. You're like, yes, that was awesome. And then when these very sappy romantic moments happen, or when some kind of iconic female has some iconic female scene, your friends are like, okay, I'm bored. And you are sort of raptly paying attention to everything and your eyes are soaking it in and you're like, this feels, you didn't have the words like fierce or slay or yas queen, but that's what your heart was saying in your little body and you just didn't know it.
They fly past the Statue of Liberty. They come up through the clouds, which is where she would be fucking freezing at this point. She needs a sweater. But and then as they're flying, first he's really holding her, then they're holding each other's arms, then they're holding each other's hands. Now she's out at the end of his fingertips and they're flying together. And even as a kid, I was like, I do not understand the physics of this scene. How does flying work? How can he hold her up by her fingertip? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think this bothers anybody else. And then, to be clear, does he intentionally drop her?
Ooh, I mean, it's a baller move if he does.
Maybe like Lois, he got caught up with shaking the bottle, and she slipped out.
I just seem so impossible that you would be carrying someone flying and then just reach out so you're only holding by the tiniest fingertips and then lose them. I think the more I look at it, I'm like, it seems like he dropped her on purpose. And she screams and falls and he flies down and grabs her. And then they spin. And then we go into, and I do not like this choice, the spoken Can I Read Your Mind? And originally, it's a song. Margot Kidder sang it originally.
And John Williams, it was very clear on the fact that it did not sound great.
Yeah. Did not sound good. And so they did this weird idea of her monologuing, which it's the thing I like least in the whole movie.
Here I am, like a kid out of school, holding hands with a god.
It's not great.
I agree. It's not great.
It's not great.
But as we mentioned, Maureen McGovern recorded it. It hit number 52 on the Billboard charts.
Yes.
And then they fly back down through the clouds. He carries her back to the rooftop, puts her feet down.
Oh, we forgot to time ourselves. You okay?
Uh-huh.
Well, good night.
Oh, good night.
And he gives that beautiful smile. And he flies off. And again, this is a crane that's lifting him up. And then this is what has actually happened here, which it took me a while to understand what they did. This was shot 6 months apart. So they did the plate where Superman flies away. Then they build the apartment set and they put a big projection screen next to the rooftop part of the apartment set 6 months later, where they're playing the footage of Superman flying away while Christopher Reeve is already dressed as Clark Kent in the other room. So we can do this all as one shot. That's how they do it.
That's insane.
What a Superman.
Which is great. And we hear some knocking and she opens up the door and there is Clark. And the contrast of seeing back to back, where you're just spending time with Superman and now we're with Clark, it just highlights how exceptional his performance as these two characters is.
Lois, for goodness sake, didn't you hear me knocking?
Uh-huh.
Lois, we did have a date tonight, remember?
And she's very distracted. And I love his little, Lois, have you been, and does the drinking gesture. Like, are you drunk? And she goes off to kind of get ready and we're left alone with him. I think it is amazing how totally different he looks. Not just his posture, not just his, where he holds his head and of course the hair and the glasses, but it's almost like his face looks doughier,
Yeah.
like it looks different. And he watches her go and he's alone for a moment. And I think this moment is remarkable. He takes off his glasses. You see him straighten up and the doughiness of his face, in my opinion, goes away.
Yep.
And he becomes Superman.
Well, I think what he's doing, as someone who is constantly looking in the mirror and trying to figure out if I look fat in the face or not, I think like when he's Clark Kent, he's not only, when you hunch and you pull your head back a little bit, you do sort of, your face gets a little fuller. And then when you like stand upright, your face thins out. And I think that's literally what he's like. He's like, oh, Clark, oh, da-da. And then he takes the glasses off and just sort of like stands up. And it literally looks like he slims, like it's an amazing effect, but there's nothing special about it. It's just him doing that. And that like, it's it's for all of the effects that you're going through and talking about how they do it, which I find constantly fascinating because it's insane compared to how we do stuff today. This moment is one of the most special effects in the movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, those of you listening at home, you're not watching this on video, but I just watched Michael Vogel in that conversation as Clark Kent take off his glasses, straighten up, and there was a clear transformation there. It was pretty impressive. And he says in a different voice with a different tone,
Lois, there's something I have to tell you. I'm really...
And she comes out and you watch him change his mind and he goes right back to being Clark Kent.
You see that he wants to tell her the truth. I love that moment because he wants to tell her the truth. But Lois, even when she walks out, Clark stands straight up. He is still standing straight up without his glasses on. If she was remotely not lost in the glow of the thing with Superman, she would have noticed. But she is so lost in it and he just immediately reverts back to being Clark because he's not ready to tell her because he sees how lost in the idea of Superman that she still is. And so it's not the right time to tell her. At least that's how I take what he says.
So one of the things about screenwriting is not the words that you write, it's the words that you don't write. Like a lot of screenwriting is editing because all writers like to over-explain things all the time. And I think what's great about this moment is he just flew with Lois and had like the most romantic, super hot, flirty moment ever, told her, I don't lie. And then he comes around and in that moment, he's like, you know what? I don't want to lie. I want to tell her the truth. But then in his head is, oh, Clark, he's nothing. And I think he's thinking of that and that's all there. And that's why he doesn't do it. And I think that's why that moment works. It doesn't have to be explained, but we get why he does what he does.
And then Clark, I love that he goes,
I was at first really nervous about tonight. But then I decided, well, darn it, I was going to show you the time of your life.
That's Clark, nice.
I was thinking maybe we could go for a hamburger or whatever you want to do.
And I'm like, a dude just flew her into the sky, and he's going to take her for the time of her life for a hamburger. Which, by the way, I do love hamburgers.
Yeah. Don't knock hamburgers, right?
So it is now an hour and 34 minutes into this film, and there has been no plot. We met the bad guys,
yes,
but we don't know what they're trying. We heard something about real estate, but really nobody has done a plot yet, which is just crazy structurally.
It's interesting because, I mean, even with James Gunn's Superman, he purposely wanted to make it very episodic to feel like a comic book. Yeah. And I think what makes this work is there's the Krypton comic book, there is the Smallville comic book, there is the Superman meets Lois and introduces himself to the world comic book, and then there's the Lex Luthor comic book. And all of them sort of coexist, but they very clearly have where they begin and end.
We're back with Lex Luthor and Miss Tesmacher, and he's reading the paper where there is a front page article that says, I spent the night with Superman.
Amazing. Too good to be true.
It's too good to be true. He's 6'4", has black hair, blue eyes, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and tells the truth.
Miss Tesmacher, some people can read War and Peace and come away thinking it's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe.
It's a great line.
I really am just picturing John as Lex Luthor at this point.
I'm not lying to you. Like this, if I was, I would totally be this because this is amazing. I love what he does.
Well, I hope you treat the Lady Outlaw better than Miss Tesmacher.
Oh,
that's
please.
all I have to say.
Of course. And they're not together. So, you know.
But we are casting Shannon McClung as your Otis, I hope.
No, I don't think Shannon would go for that.
I mean, he's I've heard him say Mr. Luthor, and he does it pretty good.
And in this one of these great sets they have at their secret hideout is we have, the classic library, multiple levels with the ladder on the wheel, and he says something about M.
You want M, Mr. Luthor? Come right up.
And he moves the ladder, leaving Lex hanging, and we have some more comedy. And then we have there's some really dumb science in comic book movies, science fiction movies. This is some really dumb science. Because he says
Krypton exploded in 1948. Took 3 years in a rocket ship to get to Earth. Ergo.
And then he comes up with this perfectly logical scientific idea.
Fragments from the planet Krypton exploded and went into outer space. It is reasonable to assume that some of those particles of debris drifted to Earth.
Meteorites!
And now they find a meteorite that had landed in Addis Ababa.
To us, they are just meteorites. But the level of specific radioactivity is so high to anyone from the planet Krypton
This substance is lethal.
There are so many leaps of logic to come to this conclusion. I mean, it's like, so it blew up in another galaxy in 1948, but the particles, even though we can't go faster than the speed of light, had to have landed on Earth, and the radioactivity must kill Kryptonians. Perfectly logical.
Perfectly logical.
That's how science
makes
works.
Perfect sense. What are you talking about? It makes sense to me.
Wait a minute, Miss Luthor. You mean fire and bullets can't hurt this guy, but this stuff here will kill him.
And now we have a plot. We are finally heading towards someone is going to try to kill Superman. So we actually have the bit of a plot. The bad guys are starting to do something. And so I think at this moment, we should end part 2 of our exploration of Superman. As always, we'd love to hear your comments on the show. You can go to our Facebook page. Just do a search for The Cine-Files. It's Cine_Files on Twitter. The Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. You can support the show, as we mentioned at the top, at patreon.com/The Cine-Files and Apple Podcasts, where you can get ad-free versions of the show, our Cine-Files shorts, and on Patreon, even join our advisory board. You can buy or stream Superman along with every other movie we've ever reviewed at cinephiles.net. And if you want to reach me, it's at Twitter at SRMorris and SRMorris1 at Instagram. John, how would people find you?
Yeah, you can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. And then my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, where you can enjoy Michael Vogel and I and Shannon McClung on the Geek Buddies, talking about all kinds of things going on in the world of geekdom. And of course, my other shows as well, The Hot Mic, The Jedi Way, my reactions and reviews, and Spill the Tequila. So head on over there as well.
And Mr. Vogel, I know you always have amazing opinions on all things geeky. Where would people find you to find those opinions?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MKToon, and you can find me over on John Rocha's channel every week talking all my geeky opinions with him and the Geek Buddies.
And I think that is it for this week. We will be back to conclude 1978 Superman, directed by Richard Donner, starring Christopher Reeve and a whole bunch of other people next week, right here on the Cine-Files.